zap and the next chunk that goes in here. Yes, really nice float fishing at Kuori. Of course, it is always fun here with the telescopic rod, the Bolognese rod, or just here with the match rod. Yes, and every now and then the Peled goes in quite well, the Kuori Whitefish, but of course also such lake trout. Well, that is of course already again a really thick chunk here. Incredible. But that will probably be rather a lake trout. If that is a Peled or a Kuori Whitefish, then definitely trophy weight. That is really heavy. Biggest fish now here, really not bad. And there goes already something down again, but probably a lake trout. Well, look, almost 4 kilograms lake trout. Not bad at all. I will of course gladly take that as well. So again, casually cast out here at this spot. Maybe we still get the next one. Then of course you have to be much faster, or you simply miss one or the other. Not so bad, because overall the whole thing works really well here. Good frequency here, different fish species that also go in here. As I said, from the Kuori Whitefish to the Vendace up to the Peled. Also already quite good weights that have gone in here. The Peled with up to 2.4 kilograms even. So really nice and big. Works really well here at this spot right now. And this is also a spot that you can test regularly. So always come back again and again, and especially when you're still making float skill points, then something like this is worth it, of course, because we simply catch different fish species here. Still, you have to be a little careful here, because at Quarry it is not as easy as at Balaya. I had recently again made a video about fishing at Balaya, about how to start float fishing at Balaya, because that is also very worthwhile, since you can already start there really well with the cheapest float set and make the first percentages in float fishing. For fishing at Quarry, these setups are not suitable though. There you really have to go in much stronger again, so very important that you have enough line capacity here, of course also sufficient load capacity and brake force then on the reel. So there you already need a somewhat stronger setup, and I would say towards the end we also take another look. Then I will go again to a shop, and then we also look again at a setup that you can use well here so that you can continue to farm float skill points here. Speaking of farming, of course the silver also has to fit, and that usually fits quite well, especially as I said when here the Peled go in somewhat bigger, but then also the Kuori Whitefish, which have so far only been relatively small. I am curious whether more is possible there, whether more goes in, and of course it would be interesting whether bigger whitefish go in, and whether it will then at some point also be worth it for the whitefish here. I have now once cast out 2 floats as solo bait, once only with the Mayfly Larva and once with the Stonefly Larva. And here still remains the double bait combination, Stonefly plus Mayfly, that you must of course always test first. So which of these 2 larva types brings the most fish right now, and especially which fish? Often it is the case that the Mayfly larva brings the most Vendace, and that is not necessarily what you want. Well, in the next lake trout, look at that. However, if you are only after the Peled, you can also test the whole thing here quite well with different worm types. So definitely also try different worms here. Peled also goes very regularly on worm at Tunguska. You can also fish excellently for trout here with a larger setup or a mid-class setup. For that you use ideally the dung beetle or the grasshopper as bait or the cricket. So that also works well again and again. Of course you do not have to go here on the small whitefish or the Vendace. Yes, let us briefly look at the setup of course. This is how the whole thing looks. I am here with 9 kilograms fluorocarbon completely. Is usually sufficient. If you want, you can of course go finer here with 6-7 kilograms, but then you definitely need enough line capacity. It is recommended then, depending on what reel you use, maybe rather take a braided mainline, and then again fluorocarbon as leader material. The other setups are also built like this now, so only with a size 4 hook, and then once with Mayfly or with Stonefly, and there it goes down again. 2 at the same time, and both not hooked. Hey. Yes, that unfortunately happens here regularly as well. So if you are here with somewhat larger hooks, that simply happens every time when a far too small Vendace bites with only a few grams, the hooks simply hold much worse. So also do not hang your head, that happens constantly. Before we look at a suitable setup in the tackle shop right away, we of course already sell the first fish here. So Peled, cafe order, we will of course gladly take that. Vendace 5 pieces I have not quite together yet. They will then come together later. Well, and the lake trout trophy. I have unfortunately also not yet caught. Yes, maybe that will still change of course, and maybe something a little bigger will still go in shortly. Overall, we also take another look here at the fish market, and then you also see that the pellet is also quite good in silver value. So you can already do that quite well now in this short time. Now here just over 100 silver with the cafe order. Is of course not so much yet, but I have of course also tested and experimented a lot at first. Nevertheless, it is actually worth it, even such lake trout. Therefore, you can really also consider whether for float skilling, you do not simply try here with simple insect baits to go for lake trout. And for that, we now look for a suitable setup together. For shopping, we go of course here to Wolchow, because from here it is really worth it, since the prices here are 100% prices. So not like at other waters, sometimes 110%, 120%, or even more expensive, but we simply have original prices here. In the tackle shop, we then, of course, go here above to fishing rods, then to Bolognese rods. These are the rods that you unlock after telescopic rods. To be able to use the rods, you do not need to invest skill points. Into Bolognese fishing, that is not necessary. And a rod with a very good price-performance ratio is here the Siberia Linea Bolognese. For the beginning, the smallest model with 455 silver is absolutely sufficient. That in turn, you can then combine with a reel, which you can later also still use for the Belaya setup. So under stationary reels, then we go here to the Dragon, and indeed the Dragon 3000, not the 4000, no. We take the 3000 because we can later still use it for the medium light Belaya setup when we also want to do spinning at Belaya. For this, we now use in this case also a suitable line, so a braided line. And in use with this braided line, because it's really nicely thin, we now have here on the reel 267 meters of possible 350 meters, and that is already really good. With that, we can already go really long into the drill. Now still a fluorocarbon leader, and already we almost have the setup complete. Then maybe we take still a nice size 1 hook, and then comes still a dung beetle on it, and already it can start. So with this setup, we can now fish here at Kuori, but also quite excellently do next level float fishing at Belaya. For that, we now set once the retrieval speed to maximum. We lower the bait down, so to about 60 centimeters or maybe down to 1.50 meters, and then we see what is going on here, and whether something is going on here in the front. Well, I would say we should cast a bit further. So cast out a little further. The whole thing sinks down here now. Retrieval speed maximum. Break we set down a little first. We do not yet know how the braking behavior is, and we can always still set the brake higher. And now here it means, of course, again, waiting and watching, whether now something bites on this bait. And there it already starts. Well, we did not have to wait long. Already comes the first bite. Now, of course, we wait again until the float also goes really down, and then we already have here, immediately zap. Yes, simply only maximum retrieval speed I had already set. Left mouse button plus shift pressed, simply cranked, and while cranking also the right mouse button for lifting. Well, and then usually the fish should also be hooked. So now we can slowly set the brake higher. Still it goes through, so the brake still does not really grip, does not really hold yet, but now slowly it does. That's good. Also, when you make a little bit more movement, we do not get into the red area. So nothing can break or get damaged here. Well, you see, and already we have even caught a char here. Really nice, a rare fish here. Valuable fish, and that on such a simple setup. And even if the fish then once goes in really big here, Sure, we now only have 5 kilograms breaking force, but because we now have over 260 meters of line, we can also break really nicely slowly until the fish then at some point is tired, and then we have also reeled it in at some point. And as I said, you can now fish at Balaya in exactly the same way. Best take another look at the Balaya Start Float video, because there it is explained step by step where you best fish, how you best fish with which baits, and yes, the whole thing could of course also be done much cheaper, but this would now be a really nice mid-class setup. Weight-wise also very nicely balanced. So 8 kilograms load capacity on the rod, sufficient breaking force now here on the reel, and with the setup and enough line you can pull out quite a lot here. And the entire setup again under 1,000 silver. And the most important thing, if you also want to do spinning, you already have one component of the Balaya setup. There are already videos on the channel for that as well. That means then you would only need another rod for spinning and would already have the suitable reel for it. And with that, you can then do float fishing plus spinning at Balaya or also here at Kuori. Yes, so much for the setup. The setup goes out this Friday then, namely in the Friday competition fishing at Balaya. There it then goes out to a player up to level 20. That means a low-level player then has the possibility to win the setup. In the live stream from 19 o'clock, it starts live on Twitch. We see each other then in the next video or in the live stream. Until then, tight lines.